Reincarnation. Mix pav. I'm fucked. I'm so fucked. I am so fucked. How many times do I have to tell you, Seiji? No cursing. A voice told me from the side while I continued staring at the ceiling as I lay flat on my back like a well-laid corpse, contemplating on how fucked I was. My head lifelessly rolled to the side to look at the person who had just reprimanded me. He was sitting on the floor with one of his knees coming up to his chest. There was a small table in front where different Japanese dishes were set and he was eating a bowl of rice with chopsticks. He wore a black traditional Japanese dress and there were many scars on his face that hinted at the violence he had seen. But underneath such scars was a young face that could not be older than 20. Come and eat your food before it gets cold, he told me while shoving lumps of rice into his mouth. He did not even bother to look at me, his eyes were closed while he enjoyed his food. Of course, he would be enjoying his food peacefully, because unlike me, he was not absolutely fucked. Wait, that's not exactly correct. He was just as screwed as me, but unlike me, he was blissfully ignorant of what the future held. You might be wondering why I was in such deep trouble and even contemplating killing myself right now. The answer was simple. Currently, it was the year 1910 and somehow, I was living in a rural village in Japan. And if it wasn't obvious already, I had somehow traveled back exactly 110 years into the past. How it happened, I did not know. The last thing I remember was sending a leave letter to the principal, faking sickness so that I could skip school that day. I did not die, I did not get hit by a truck, nor did I fall into a rabbit hole like Alice. One moment I was there and in the next, I found myself here. There was no hint, there was no warning, and there definitely was no logic. Actually, I found myself in this situation yesterday, but being hopeful that it was a dream, I slept. But the next day, I was still in the same situation, trapped inside some kid's body in an era that was known to be the worst. For people who are not well versed in history, let me tell you some of the future event that awaits me, a person living in Japan during the early 1900s, World War I, the Great Kanto earthquake that killed around 150,000 people, World War II, which was known as the bloodiest war in human history with 85 million casualties and 2 atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Yeah, what a remarkable future that awaits me. Did I also mention that Hitler would be coming into power soon as well? Fantastic. I am so screwed. Are you going to lay there all day like a dead fish? If you don't come, I am going to eat your share, the young man said after a while. I continued lying on the floor for a few more seconds before I pushed myself up. I looked at the man whom I recalled to be Kenshi, the eldest sibling and my big brother. Since coming back to this era yesterday, I have slowly been gaining the memories of this 4-year-old body that I inherited. There were a total of 7 members in our family, but all of them were away to work for the day except for me and my brother. They thought I was sick since I refused to act right yesterday and slept the whole day. So they made my brother stay at home to watch over me at home. As the youngest in the family, I was quite spoiled. I'm not hungry, you can have it, I said, and my brother simply shrugged. Suit yourself then. I got up and walked out of the room to wander around aimlessly while gathering my thoughts and processing the entire situation. Everything still felt unreal to me. I walked out into the courtyard and a pleasant breeze came to relieve my not-so-unpleasant mood. The leaves of the trees fluttered in a flushing sound and the air, which was still untainted by pollution, filled my lungs. The sun hung high in the sky and its gentle warmth caressed my skin. The greenery seemed to reflect this warmth as it glazed like jade. It was a beautiful summer day and the chirping of birds and the buzzing of insects was what really made this felt like a dream to me. I was born deaf back in my original life. So this was the first time I was hearing things. If not for the memories I was slowly gaining, I would have had a harder time adjusting. So I listened closely to the different sounds of the world and the melodious music of still nature. I thought to myself, maybe everything was not so bad. I had no family back home as my mother ran away with a guy when I was 10 and my father passed away due to alcohol the following year. I had no real siblings as I was an accident my parents won't allow to happen twice, and I have been passed around between relatives like a chore. My social life was not good because I was deaf. I couldn't afford hearing aids either, so I remained completely deaf for the 13 years I had been alive. Instead, I had to adapt to reading people's lips for the most basic level of communication. I was bullied in school as well because I was sent to a government school where all the poor and lowlifes of society went, and they were more than happy to bully the small kid more unfortunate than themselves. I actually kicked one of them in the shin not too long ago, and I was trying to skip school in fear that they would get revenge before everything happened and I traveled to the past. So there was nothing much to miss from my other life. So maybe even though I was born in a really bad era, this could be a great chance to start over. I had a proper family now, and judging from my memories, they were all great people. With my future knowledge, I could escape all the upcoming disasters and maybe even thrive in this world. So maybe this was not such a bad turn of events. Scratch that, this was a great turn of events. This was a new start for me, and I was finally able to fulfill my dream of hearing sound as well. That's it. Maybe I am not fucked. I fucked. .. We're home. My mother was the first to announce her return as my small body quickly got up to run up to my new family. My brother Kenshi followed behind with a small smile. He was a cool guy who actually fought in the Russo-Japanese War and survived to tell the tale. I spent the entire day with him, and in doing so, I was able to gain back all of my memories. Yes, my memories. I realized after recalling everything that I had not taken over the body of a small child. Instead, I was born as such, and I recalled my memories only now. Welcome home, I said with a smile on my face, feeling giddy at not just seeing my mother but also hearing my own voice. I liked talking, even in my past life when I was deaf. It always felt like magic to me how people could share their thoughts, feelings and intentions with just a movement of their lips. Oh, was my baby feeling well today? She chirped at me while picking up my small body and rubbing her cheeks against mine. She smelled like grass and soil, which made sense since my family were farmers. Why yeah, I replied with a blush and a smile on my face. It was awkward as a 13-year-old to be handled like a baby, but at the same time, it felt good to be loved by your mother. That other bitch could never. Where's father and the others? I asked, and my mother replied with a smile. I came home early to prepare food since your brother can't be trusted with the task. They will be home soon. My brother had an awkward smile and rubbed the back of his head under my mother's faux disappointed gaze. Do you want to help mommy cook dinner, Seiji? My mother turned back to me with a beaming smile. She was beautiful. She wore dull clothes tainted with dirt and her hair was tied into a messy bun. By all means, she wore no flattering clothes, but she looked beautiful to me, like nature's greatest gift. I nodded with a small smile. And that was the start of my new life. It was easy for someone who never had anything to start over. Dash 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 dash. 44 comments, 0 vote. Demon attack. Seiji's POV. 3 years elapsed even before I knew it, and I had lived more than I ever did in my past life. I was happy. Some people might find that hard to believe, given my prior reaction to the situation I found myself in. But happiness comes from the people you surround yourself with, not from the world surrounding you. I experienced that firsthand. Because in this second life, I was lucky enough to be surrounded by a real family who truly loved me. Now how could I possibly be sad even if I was living in the worst era of human history? How could I stop smiling when I finally had a family? There was my father, my mother, my older brother and 3 older sisters. Including myself, we were a loving family of 7. Quite a small family actually in this era. We were wealthy as both my father and brother were army officers who retired after the Russo-Japanese War. We moved from the city to the rural areas after their retirement. They bought a large piece of land for farming and a small mansion with their pension money. There, we lived a slow and peaceful life just like they always wanted. I thought I was blessed to have been reborn into such a family. My father and brother were tough men, but they had a very soft side for their family. My mother and sisters were all beautiful and loving women who couldn't help spoiling me every moment of the day. I would get passed around like a teddy bear and I was more than happy to oblige. I was the youngest in the family and by a lot. There was an 8-year difference between me and the second youngest sibling. I was what they called a late-in-life child. I was a pleasant surprise addition to the family. But this happiness did not last long. And I would have expected it if I had known the world I was living in at that time. I was 7 years old when it happened. Who would have thought a Gen Z soul like me could ever enjoy farming? I said with a smile while wiping the sweat from my face. As a 7-year-old and the little jewel of the family, I was of course not allowed to do hard work on the farm yet. But I was in charge of watering all of the plants. They said I had a nurturing touch and the plants I watered grew healthier. Of course, I knew they were just over-exaggerating, but it was enough to make me take my job seriously and try my best. Which was exactly why I was the only person in the crop field right now. It was late in the afternoon with the sun shining deep orange as it was about to set. But I still remained in the field because I was watering the crops. The best time to water them was in the afternoon because that way, the plants would be able to absorb the water properly without the sun evaporating the water. I did not mind staying behind as the field was right next to our house and it also allowed me to witness my favorite scene every day. It's truly beautiful, I said while gazing at the horizon, specifically at the sun which was slowly sinking between the peak of two mountains. I liked beautiful things. Since I was deaf in my past life, I had a strong love for anything that was visually stunning. From arts, sculptures and pretty girls, I loved them all. I resumed my work after a minute of just watching the sunset and quickly finished watering the plants before it got dark. If I was late, my mother would be worried, so after I finished my work, I hurried home. I thought it would be like every day. I thought my mother would welcome me with a bright smile on her face. I thought my brother would praise me for working extra harder than everyone else. But that day, it was different. That day was the end of it all. What is that smell? I asked myself. It was the smell of blood so thick that it made me want to fall down on my knees and vomit. There was a metallic tang to it that stuck in my nostrils. I quickened my steps and head towards my house. The closer I came to the house, the stronger the smell got, and then I heard the sound of sobbing from inside. Mom, Dad. I ran to the door and slid it open. My blood froze when I saw it. The image was forever imprinted on the darkest corner of my mind. Inside, I saw the walls of the house I called my home, painted with blood and intestines. I also saw littered corpses and pieces of flesh sprawled around from the entrance to the living room. My stomach twisted at the sight and then my heart when I realized it was the pieces of my family. I couldn't help myself and emptied the content of my stomach right then and there. I vomited violently in the doorway. My vomit was mixed with tears that fell down like a broken dam. I did not feel anything at that time even though I was bawling my eyes out. I felt too many intense emotions all at once, so I think my brain just numbed everything. Then I heard a piercing scream which made me look up. I stumbled and then crawled towards the sound. The blood and pieces of flesh on the floor made it so slippery that I fell down numerous times. But I did not care. Because I knew whose voice that belonged to. Miko, I called out. My juvenile voice was overflowing with fear and panic. When I reached the kitchen I finally saw my sister, but I also saw something else. A monster I could only describe as ugly. He looked like an old man with a hunched back. His body was full of wrinkles and dirty white hair fell down his balding head like webs. He was also extremely pale and he was pinning my sister to the ground. My eyes shook when I saw them. My sister was completely naked, her clothes were torn off by the sharp claws of the monster. She was crying and her face twisted with pain and despair. One of her breasts was gone, eaten by the monster who held her down. A side of her stomach was cut and her insides were spilling out with blood that was so red it looked black. I also noticed that her thighs and her buttocks had gaping wounds, most of her flesh there was gone. The monster's face was covered in blood and it was not hard for even my panicked mind to conclude what was happening. My sister was being eaten alive. And the way she was being eaten felt like a picky child eating his food, choosing to eat only the good parts first. The scene was a raw and unadulterated show of violence. It was demonic. I screamed. Ah, my throat ripped due to how loud it came out. And then I charged at the monster who had killed my family and was eating my sister. My 7-year-old body moved as fast as it could and adrenaline pumped in my veins. I still haven't felt anything yet. But before I could even reach the monster, he turned towards me. His face looked like an old man and he opened his mouth. He released a sonic boom that ruptured my ears and froze my adrenaline. My small body was sent flying away from the shockwave and I crashed into the wall. Pain. Pain coursed throughout my body and it was the first thing I felt. I clutched my ear with both hands and it was bleeding endlessly. I felt warm liquids inside my head and I felt dizzy. I tried to get up but I couldn't. For a brief moment, I forgot up from down and right to left. My body was in shock and I broke many bones when I crashed into the wall. The only thing I could do was look up and stare as the monster continued devouring my sister. I still did not feel anything other than pain. But I remembered I was glad when she finally died and her screaming stopped. I remained on the ground and watched until the end where my sister became a lump of intestines and bare bones. I saw everything. I just curled up on the ground and wiggled like a worm. Helpless. After the monster was done, it looked at me and then he came near me. I could no longer hear what he said, it felt like I was underwater. But I could read his lips. He said something along the lines of me being too small to be eaten and that he was full. But strangely enough, I could vividly hear the last thing he said to me. His lips curled up into the cruelest smile I had ever seen and then with eyes filled with amusement, he said to me, "Thank you for the meal." I was helpless. I couldn't do anything. The demon left but as I watched him leave, I was filled with anger and hatred I never knew was possible. Was a child even capable of bearing such hatred? Out of pure spite, I pushed myself off the ground and then ran after him. When he was in the doorway about to leave the house, I caught up to him. I ran at him with mindless abandon. My body functioned only through anger and my action was filled with spite. But I remember, my main objective then was not to kill the monster. I knew I could not kill him even if I wanted to. I only attacked because I was filled with anger and because I wanted something else. I wanted to die. I wanted to die before my mind stopped panicking and this nightmare became a reality. I wanted to die with my family. But the monster did not kill me. I think it knew what I wanted and was refusing to grant me my wish. He merely swung his arm at me and I felt my shoulder and ribs breaking under his inhumane strength. And then for the second time, he opened his mouth and released a sonic boom that sent me flying away like a ragdoll. I lay sprawled on the ground, along with the pieces of flesh which I once called a family. I could not even differentiate who was who. They were all just mingled remains of bones and intestines. The monster left and I was alone in the house. My home had turned into hell. It took some time but then it eventually came, pain. And it was not the physical pain I got from being injured. It was something else, something that came from the deepest part of my soul. Reality sank in and the nightmare finally became vivid. I started brawling and I felt my heart being crushed by an invisible hand. It felt like I was being strangled. Grief, sadness, pain, despair, guilt and every negative emotion I know of and some I never knew existed. I gathered the pieces of flesh and bones and hugged them in a bloody mess of gore. And the whole night I stayed in that hell, trying to find the final worth of comfort from my lost family. I think I cried the whole night but everything was silent because I lost my sense of hearing. That night, after 3 years since regaining my memories, I was robbed of everything I was blessed with in this second life. My family and my hearing. I mourned in the silence. Dash 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 dash. 76 comments 0 vote. The Transparent World. Seiji's Pav. I said the time and place I was born in could not have gotten worse. I jinxed myself because it got so much worse. Demon Slayer. That was the world I was living in. That was my new reality. A manga anime that was based in the Taisho era of Japan. The main villains of the anime were the demons who fed on human flesh and were vulnerable to sunlight. These demons were hunted by demon slayers who were the good guys. It was a dark shonen where almost every named character had their families slaughtered by demons one way or the other. So if I was being honest, it was not surprising that I suffered the same fate. But God, was it a hard fate to swallow? I couldn't accept it. I remember crying and mourning for days after losing my family. I cried until everything felt numb. But after a week passed, I was fully at peace with my situation. I was lucky because other than the initial grief I felt, I did not bear any lifelong traumas. Because my mentality was fundamentally different from everyone else, I had known my family for only 3 years while I lived 13 years in my past life without a family. So what did that mean? It meant that deep down, I knew I never really had a family. The family I got in my second life were all blessings that I did not deserve. It was like a privilege that I was even able to live with them and enjoy life for 3 years. So instead of mourning over what I lost, I learned to be thankful for what I had. You could say that I was dealing with fear death much better compared to a child who knew his family his whole life. To them, it must have felt like someone had destroyed their whole world. But to me, it felt like someone stole everything from me after I won the lottery. Two different feelings from the same event. The mind was a powerful thing. After a week, all I felt was hatred for those who had stolen from me. I despised the beings who robbed me of the warmth of a family. I would never forgive them, especially that old demon who refused to kill me. Fuck that ugly piece of shit. It has been 8 days since that night and life had been silent for me ever since. With my hearing completely destroyed by the blood demon art of that old demon, it was just like my past life. I was deaf and without family. Talk about going back to square one. In a short time, I got used to being deaf again. I even regained my old skill of reading a person's lips to hear what they were saying. I guess old skills die hard. But even though I was living in perpetual silence, I was far from being lonely. In fact, it was the opposite, as I was never left alone since the incident happened. All the villagers came together to care for and comfort me. It got to the point that people were actually fighting over whose house I was going to stay in and take care of me. Not only that, the villagers were quick to clean up the mansion and prepare a big funeral for my dead family. And I kid you not, people I had never even met before cried harder than even myself at the funeral. What could be the reason? Was it sympathy? Was it the pity for the small child who lost his whole family in one night? Or was it human kindness? It was none of them. The real reason was greed. As I said before, my family was exceptionally wealthy due to my father and brother, so these people were trying to get on my good side so that I would choose them to be my legal guardian. I was still a child in front of the law, so I could not inherit the wealth of my family until I came of age. Until then, my family's wealth was to fall into the hands of my guardian. Normally, a relative of mine should be my guardian, but as I did not have other relatives, it would have to be one of these villagers who would become my legal guardian. Although eventually I would regain full ownership of my inheritance, there was still many benefits people could gain while I was young. For example, they could use our land to cultivate crops, live in our mansion, and even launder my money with the excuse of using it to raise me. Truly disgusting, but that was just human nature. You do everything to thrive. Especially in a time like this where war and poverty were constant. I knew all of this because they did not hold back what they said in front of the kid who they thought had completely lost his hearing. I might be deaf now, but like I said, I could still read their lips easily. Can you understand me? A stupid question to ask a kid who just lost his hearing, but okay, I could entertain you, random villager who acted like my favorite uncle since I lost my parents. At least he was nice enough to feed me good food and let me have my own room until now. I nodded. Really? Then do you remember what happened that night? Did a demon really attack your family? He asked with exaggerated body language. I just stared at him with the most blank face I could give. People of this age were truly insensitive. Or maybe it's just a boy thing. Did he not realize I could be traumatized and I might break down again if he kept bringing that up? I was not, but still. I guess they couldn't help being curious, as demons and gods were in the line between myth and reality. They just assumed a demon attacked because of the gore, but some argued that it was a wild animal from the mountain, a bear maybe. I don't know if anyone has told you this, but you have a really creepy stare. He said that part to himself, but I saw it. Actually, no one had told me such things. But I guess it was reasonable for my gaze to change after I gained what I did. I continued staring at the man's face and focused on my eyes. Then my gaze pierced right through his head and I saw his brain. Literally. I saw his brain and his skull. My eyes traveled down and I saw his expanding lungs and pulsing heart. I clearly saw how his heart was pumping blood throughout his body, and I saw his muscles twitch with every movement he made. I was also able to discern the minor muscle tear in his biceps, quads and shoulder, which hints at the work he was doing in the fields. It felt like I had an inbuilt X-ray vision in my eyes. I could see everything I wanted and hadn't desired. I could also read his body language like an open book, and predict his movements by the breath of his lungs and the contraction of his muscles. At first, I thought I was merely seeing things. I thought that it was the result of a trauma I got from seeing my loved ones eaten alive. But soon enough, I realized that it had nothing to do with trauma. Instead, it was one of the rarest powers in the Demon Slayer world. It was called the transparent world. People with this ability were able to see the inner workings of any creature. They could perceive the flow of blood, breathing, muscular contractions and joint movements of the creature they are looking at. They could then use this ability to predict the movement of said creature, find their weaknesses and even discern their genetic makeup, which helped them distinguish demons from humans or even trace back their descendants. Not only that, the transparent world also boosted the perception of the user and gave them faster reflexes. There might be other things that were not mentioned in the manga as well. There were only 7 known users in the whole world, and the only way to attain the transparent world was after activating the Demon Slayer mark, another unique power of the Demon Slayer world. It was truly odd how I got this power without awakening my mark. My only guess was it had something to do with me being deaf, because as we know, the loss of one sense could enhance other senses. To be honest, I was not worried about how I got it. Only how I was going to use it. "I will leave you now," the man said with nonsensical hand gestures. "Call me if you need anything." He went out of the room and slid the door shut. I was left alone in the room, sitting upright on the futon. Somehow, the perpetual silence became heavier after I was alone. I wondered why I had not killed myself already. I did not have a reason to live any longer. I already died in my past life, and everything after that was just extra. As I said, the time I was able to spend with my family was already a privilege. And this world was not even my own. This was the world of Demon Slayer, a world where I did not belong. A place where I should not exist. I looked around the room and observed every difference between this life and my past life. The sliding doors, the decoration of the room, the futons, the age, the culture, etc. It was all something vastly different from my first life. I felt like an outsider. My family was the only anchor I had to this world. They were the ones who made me feel like I belonged here, but with them gone, I felt like I should not be here at all. So why had I not just killed myself? What could I possibly expect from continuing to live? I was deaf and I was an orphan. Was this not exactly as I was in my first life? No, scratch that. It was worse with the presence of demons and the upcoming world wars and disasters. It would be easier to just kill myself right here and finally rest or fade away to nothingness. Such thoughts were loud in the silence of my world. I contemplated for a long time until I eventually came to a conclusion. Hope. That was the biggest thing that made me want to keep living. The hope was that everything would not remain as it was. Maybe I would eventually find a new family to live for. Maybe I would make friends, fall in love and find a reason to fear death again. Hope became a pillar of my world. And there was one more thing that prevented me from committing suicide right then and there. Demons. Fuck those ugly pieces of shit, especially that old demon who took everything for me. I would slaughter every last one of them. My hatred created a goal for me, and I found a reason to continue living once more. That goal became my driving force during the darkest moments of my life. I knew I was capable of realizing this dream with my future knowledge in the transparent world. So I got up from the futon and walked towards the mirror in the room. I stood in front of it and looked at my reflection. A young boy with dark circles around his eyes stared back at me with purple eyes that glowed eerily. His eyes looked dead and alive at the same time. He wore a black haori and he had a messy purple hair on top of his head. His skin was pale and he was quite big for a kid his age. So that was me. Not bad, I thought to myself. I haven't seen my reflection in a week, but I still looked good as ever. I was handsome in my past life and I was sure to grow up to be just as beautiful in this life as well. Well, another reason to continue living, I guess. I focused my eyes and then I looked at the inner workings of my own body. It was kinda gross as my brain, lungs, muscles, heart and all of my organs revealed themselves under my gaze. This was it. This ability would be extremely useful to grow stronger. It was every science-based bodybuilder's dream ability and it would allow me to train with the utmost efficiency. Not only that, it would help me immensely in learning about breathing styles. Well, what am I waiting for? Another demon attack, I thought to myself when I saw that the injuries I got were mostly healed. Then I got down and I began doing push-ups while carefully looking at my own reflection. Dash 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 dash. Join my Patreon to read up to 10 chapters ahead. Patreon, Emmanuel_Capricorn. 58 comments 0 vote. Download the app for greater interaction. You can chat with me about my writing experience apart from the comments section. Emmanuel_Capricorn. Download app now. Path to Strength. Seiji's Pav. Can you recall what the demon looked like? Why was everyone so insistent on traumatizing me? If they kept on reminding me like this, I might actually start crying to make sure they never bother me again. I took my eyes off his moving lips and looked at the board he had in his hands. On it, the question he asked was written in bold hiragana. I knew how to read Japanese even though it was not my native language in my past life. I was kind of a language freak back then. I knew how to read and write 12 different languages. It had something to do with being deaf and writing being the only form of communication I had with others. I did not go to school in this second life of mine, but my past life's knowledge translated into an actual skill, so even though I was 7, I was probably the most educated person in this village. I looked up at the man who was holding the board and I analyzed his dress. He wore a black jacket which buttoned up to his neck along with black pants. He wore a white belt on which a katana was tightly strapped. All in all, it was the standard Demon Slayer uniform. Why does it matter, dude? You are 10 days late anyway. Wait, what did you say? Oops, did I say that out loud? I reminded myself to be careful as I occasionally had slip-ups like that after going deaf again. I would blurt out my own thoughts and I wouldn't be aware since I couldn't even hear my own voice. The demon really fucked up my ear. I said you won't believe me anyway. No one does. I said, and he gave me a look that screamed, that was not what you just said. But what was he going to do? Argue with the 7-year-old who just lost his whole family? No, he shook his head and his eyes became gentle instead. I promise I will believe what you say. Do you trust me? No dude, we just met a few minutes ago. He moved closer to the futon where I was sitting and he gently put his hand on my shoulder while he supported his body with his other hand. He leaned towards me. I understand you, kid. I experienced the same thing you did when I was a child. He started, and now, I am a demon slayer. I hunt those monsters so that they won't ever harm anyone again. So I need you to tell me what the demon looked like and what his powers were. His eyes found mine and for the first time since I got the transparent world, someone was able to hold eye contact with me. I wondered, did he remember I was deaf or did that fact completely cross his mind in his emotional state? After a few seconds of silence which was awkward only for him, I replied. He looked like an old man with a hunched back. His skin was pale, almost blue, and he was very, very ugly. They all are. He chuckled. And for his powers, I said, he could shout really loudly and it even caused my ears to bleed. The demon slayer went mute in thought and he muttered to himself, so a sound-based blood demon art huh? After that, he focused back on me and flashed a smile. Thank you for your help, kid. I will make sure your family rest in peace by killing the demon. He stood up after that and fixed his uniform. He had come to the village today and was able to get permission to talk to me alone after asking permission. But now that he got what he wanted, he was going to leave. But I didn't let him. Wait a minute, sir. I called out and crawled out from the futon where I was resting. He turned back to look at me. He tilted his head in question. Yes, how can I be like you? I asked bluntly, how can I be a demon slayer like you? He paused at the question and with my sharp eyes, I was able to see his hesitance to reply to me. On one hand, he did not want to give an answer to protect me, but on the other, he knew what it was like to lose your loved ones to a demon. He understood the feeling of hatred and the need for revenge. Please, I added. Slash 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 slash. He was a good dude. I never learned his name, but I hoped I meet him again. He really gave me a proper answer to my question. Although it was not as detailed as I would have liked and what he said was mostly what I already knew, I appreciated the help. Especially for telling me the location where the final selection would be held. The way to become a demon slayer was simple. Firstly, you had to find a mentor to teach you sword skills and train your body. They could be any demon hunter, but mostly, the mentors were veteran demon slayers or retired Hashiras. After passing the training, you had to get your own Nichiren blade. This was why it was necessary to get a mentor, because you could only obtain one through them. And then, you must go to Mt. Fuji Kasane to attend what was called the final selection process. After passing that, you would become an official demon slayer. Pretty straightforward if I am being honest. The only problem was how to find a demon slayer to mentor me. It's not like demon slayers were common in the first place, but a veteran or a retired Hashira were even rarer. But then again, I could just go to the final selection directly and steal a Nichiren blade from one of the participants. Scratch that, I wouldn't even have to steal. If I remember the show correctly, many trainees die every year in the final selection, so I could probably loot their dead body. My main priority should be getting stronger. I laid back on the futon and relaxed my body for a much-needed rest. I thought since my body was already healing, it wouldn't be a problem if I trained. I was wrong, and after a couple of days of training, doing push-ups and other exercises, my injuries got worse. Basically, I couldn't heal when I was constantly using up all my energy and creating muscle tears while training. I got so engrossed with getting stronger that sound logic slipped my mind. It was kind of embarrassing, but in my defense, I thought it would be fine since it was a shonen world where breaking your limits with determination and friendship was the average Tuesday. Alas, this was not fiction anymore, it was real. And even if it was, I was not the main character. So with all those thoughts swirling in my ever-silent world, I closed my eyes and focused on resting. If I had to rest, I was going to rest like no one ever rested before. Such was the path to strength. So I slept. Dash 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 dash. 27 comments, 0 vote. Training arc. Seiji's POV. The next phase of my life was full of hurdles and self-discovery as I walked the path towards strength. It was not an easy road. If my life was a book, I would name this chapter of my life, the training arc. Firstly, I was adopted by the community leader of our village. Contrary to my expectation, we did not move to our mansion due to fear that it might be a bad omen or haunted, especially with the way my parents were brutally slaughtered. But they did use our field to cultivate like I expected. It was at this point in my life that I realized greed was only a small fraction of human nature. Just because people were greedy, that did not mean they were bad people. Humans had flaws, but they also had a soul. With the help of my enhanced eyes, I could see lies and deceit from miles away, so believe me when I say there was no lie, humans were kind. They were good people. Although I could never love them like I did my previous family, I was glad they were there for me. It must have been tough to handle me in my early days when I wouldn't open up to anyone and live an isolated life with the excuse of being deaf. But they were persistent, so at one point, I gave in and I was happy I did. The family who adopted me were two old couples. They were 40, but it was considered old when the life expectancy was 42 years old. They had no more families as their two daughters already got married and moved out to their husband's household. But even though it was only us three, we always had guests as uncle was the leader of the village. They could either be travelers or traders, and since there were not such things as hotels, they would stay in our house or any other house they could find for the night. So we were never lonely. My training started after I was fully healed from the injuries, and at first it was mainly about building muscles with the help of my past knowledge and fully utilizing the transparent world. Other than building a stronger body, I also did everything I could to gain strength. That includes swinging wooden sticks many times to get myself familiar with the action. The transparent world became vital in sharpening my movements. I could see how my muscles twitched and worked when executing a specific action, and even without any prior knowledge, I was able to teach myself to move perfectly. I called it perfect movement. Since it barely cost me anything to use the transparent world, I always had it active, and with it, I was able to monitor each action I made every day. I would then correct my own movements until I moved with perfect fluidity. I never wasted movements in any action I did. I made sure only the right muscles were working when I executed and used just enough power. Having the transparent world virtually active also made me extremely familiar with the human body. After 2 years of living in that world where I could see everything, I was capable of predicting future actions with ease. I learned the hidden pattern in movement, and I was able to predict future actions by analyzing the current state of a body. At one point, it felt like people were talking to me with their body. I could understand everything by just looking at their body. Movement itself became a language to me. Correct, I had learned the language of the body. One more interesting thing to note was that having the transparent world perpetually active made me sleep a lot due to obvious reasons. My brain worked overtime to process all the information I got from my eyes, so it took a toll on my brain. I had to sleep at least 12 hours every day. This would be even worse if I was not deaf. Luckily, the part of my brain which should process my sense of hearing was free, and more of my brain was able to focus on my sight alone. I hoped this minor drawback would be fixed by the time my brain fully matured. So 3 years passed just like that, and during that time, my improvement could be summarized into 3 things: enhanced physique, perfect movement, and body language. At the age of 11, I realized I was no longer making much improvement other than my physique, so I started looking for other ways to get stronger. That was when I learned that there was a kendo dojo in the city of Tokyo, which was not too far away from our village. It was only around half a day travel on foot. I asked my uncle to buy me a bicycle to go back and forth from Tokyo to the village every day. He did not protest, as I rarely ever asked for anything, and it was bought with my inheritance money anyway. That was also why I was never expected to work on the farms to help them. Not only were they cultivating the fields which were legally mine, but they also used my inheritance to buy everything I needed. So they left me alone to do what I wanted. At the age of 11, I joined the Noma Dojo, which was located in Tokyo. This was also the first time I realized just how strong I was. So, how strong was I? One word: overpowered. It might not seem impressive at first, but the 2 skills I had developed, perfect movement and body language, were an absolute cheat. Coupled with my physique, which was apparently as strong as a 15-year-old, then you have someone who could beat the master of the dojo with ease. On the first day, the master of the dojo and I had a spar on my request. We fought, and that was when I realized that fighting was different for me compared to everyone else. How so, you may ask? Well, fighting to me was a conversation. When we started the spar, he did not move his lips, but the master spoke. His first attack was a straight vertical slash, and he told me how many times he had practiced that one single swing, over 10,000 times. The way the muscles on his right arm tensed much more than his left told me that he was right-handed. His eyes that were looking at the left side told me that normally, his attack would be blocked and countered from the left. His feet were planted firmly on the floor, showing his absolute lack of fear towards me. And it also told me that he had no interest in fighting aggressively, he was only trying to demonstrate his skill. His tight shoulders told me exactly where the swing was going to end and how much force was put into it. His bent elbow screamed his next move to me, a horizontal slash from the right. It was overwhelming. He talked a lot. The master told me everything without opening his mouth. The craziest thing was that it happened in under a second. I dodged his swing with perfect movement. I was like water which found the easiest and most effective way to flow. After I dodged, the master had a surprised look on his face, and then he used another attack. Just like I expected, it was a horizontal slash from the right side. I also blocked that with minimal effort. There was no waste of energy when my bakken slammed against his. His attack barely slipped off mine when the wood met. Then it was my turn to attack, and right when I thought of attacking, the master spoke again. This time, he told me about every weakness he had and how he was going to protect himself. His hesitance to step back told me of his arrogance, his greatest weakness. The middle finger on his right was not gripping the handle properly, it was injured. The tight movement on his hips told me of the back pain he had, a combination of old age and many years of training. His right eye was better than the left, which caused an imbalance in sight. He most likely wore glasses to read. He shifted his body weight to his right foot, and that told me how he would have a hard time moving to the right. He blinked and I stepped in. I was not fast nor did I put power in my footstep, but the ease at which I moved made me twice as fast and looked triple as fast. I was in front of him and I swung at his right side. He quickly took a step back in a show of expert footwork and then he tried to block. But here's the thing about perfect movement, I only use the necessary muscle group and strength in my actions. So it made it extremely easy to discard said action and make changes midway. So in an instant, I changed my swing to an upward slash that would cut his hand which held the bakken while he tried to block my first attack. But he was experienced, he saw through my attack. With a body superior to mine, he leaned back, almost in a falling motion, to dodge the slash. But he told me he was going to dodge like that even before he did. The way his muscles were currently working and tensed told me exactly what he could and could not do in his position. So I changed the slash again to a stab. I took a step forward and lunged at him. The master could no longer block, and right when he stumbled to a stop my bakken hit him, stabbing not at his heart but his pancreas. I could see exactly where I was hitting and without a doubt, he would have died. There was a long moment of stunned silence from him. His body completely froze in shock. Then he said with a strained smile, "Stabbing is not allowed." Right, kendo was a sport and I remembered the referee talked about the rules of the spar before it started. I didn't look to know what he was saying. I dropped my bakken and bowed, "I'm sorry, it's my loss." That day I realized the full extent of the skill I had mastered with the help of the transparent world. Although it was nothing to boast about compared to people like Muichiro Tokido who became a Hashira after 2 months of training when he was the same. But I think I was decently strong enough. I did not know the limit to my skills, but if I could easily read a master kendo like a book, I suppose I would not have a hard time slaying weaker demons. After the spar, I was immediately deemed a prodigy, a once-in-a-millennium genius. In this part of my training, I did not use my transparent world and I learned sword skills from the master and learned how to fight without the help of my eyes. Perfect movement was always there, so I still easily became the strongest in the dojo without the transparent world. It only took me half a year. I would learn sword techniques in the dojo and then after going home, I would completely master that technique and even make improvements with the help of the transparent world. Cycling back and forth every day from the city to the village built my body to be stronger and also increased my stamina many times over. I was able to carry baggages and other objects in my travels after a while. The villagers used me like a mailman, but I did not mind and used it as strength training. I entered many competitions during my time in the dojo and obviously, I emerged victorious in every competition. I even got some fame to my name and added wealth to my inheritance. And just like that, 2 years passed and I was 13 years old. This was when I experienced the hardest part of my training. Author. So what do you think of Seiji's powers and abilities? I made this status to keep up with the information. Status. Name. Seiji Shigen. Age. 13. Physique. Trained adult. Height. 5 feet 5. Main power. Transparent world. Skills. 1. Perfect movement. This gives him the ability to move perfectly with no wasted strength or movement. It allows him to move by working only the necessary muscle groups so he can conserve energy but also make changes in his action midway. It is exactly as its name suggests. This no longer requires the use of the transparent world and remains passive unless he learns complicated movements or techniques which he has never seen or done before. 2. Body language. This requires a transparent world, and using this skill, Seiji literally understands body language. Even the tiniest twitch of your muscle or your breathing pattern and even your heartbeat tells him everything. Seiji can perfectly predict movements before they ever happen, but this depends on how experienced the fighter is. If the opponent is top tier, Seiji might only be able to predict their next move. You are telling him everything basically. End. Dash 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 dash. Seiji's POV. The next phase of my life was full of hurdles and self-discovery as I walked the path towards strength. It was not an easy road. If my life was a book, I would name this chapter of my life, the training arc. Firstly, I was adopted by the community leader of our village. Contrary to my expectation, we did not move to our mansion due to fear that it might be a bad omen or haunted, especially with the way my parents were brutally slaughtered. But they did use our field to cultivate like I expected. It was at this point in my life that I realized greed was only a small fraction of human nature. Just because people were greedy, that did not mean they were bad people. Humans had flaws, but they also had a soul. With the help of my enhanced eyes, I could see lies and deceit from miles away, so believe me when I say there was no lie, humans were kind. They were good people. Although I could never love them like I did my previous family, I was glad they were there for me. It must have been tough to handle me in my early days when I wouldn't open up to anyone and live an isolated life with the excuse of being deaf. But they were persistent, so at one point, I gave in and I was happy I did. The family who adopted me were two old couples. They were 40, but it was considered old when the life expectancy was 42 years old. They had no more families as their two daughters already got married and moved out to their husband's household. But even though it was only us three, we always had guests as uncle was the leader of the village. They could either be travelers or traders, and since there were not such things as hotels, they would stay in our house or any other house they could find for the night. So we were never lonely. My training started after I was fully healed from the injuries, and at first it was mainly about building muscles with the help of my past knowledge and fully utilizing the transparent world. Other than building a stronger body, I also did everything I could to gain strength. That includes swinging wooden sticks many times to get myself familiar with the action. The transparent world became vital in sharpening my movements. I could see how my muscles twitched and worked when executing a specific action, and even without any prior knowledge, I was able to teach myself to move perfectly. I called it perfect movement. Since it barely cost me anything to use the transparent world, I always had it active, and with it, I was able to monitor each action I made every day. I would then correct my own movements until I moved with perfect fluidity. I never wasted movements in any action I did. I made sure only the right muscles were working when I executed and used just enough power. Having the transparent world virtually active also made me extremely familiar with the human body. After 2 years of living in that world where I could see everything, I was capable of predicting future actions with ease. I learned the hidden pattern in movement, and I was able to predict future actions by analyzing the current state of a body. At one point, it felt like people were talking to me with their body. I could understand everything by just looking at their body. Movement itself became a language to me. Correct, I had learned the language of the body. One more interesting thing to note was that having the transparent world perpetually active made me sleep a lot due to obvious reasons. My brain worked overtime to process all the information I got from my eyes, so it took a toll on my brain. I had to sleep at least 12 hours every day. This would be even worse if I was not deaf. Luckily, the part of my brain which should process my sense of hearing was free, and more of my brain was able to focus on my sight alone. I hoped this minor drawback would be fixed by the time my brain fully matured. So 3 years passed just like that, and during that time, My improvement could be summarized into 3 things: enhanced physique, perfect movement and body language. At the age of 11, I realized I was no longer making much improvement other than my physique, so I started looking for other ways to get stronger. That was when I learned that there was a kendo dojo in the city of Tokyo, which was not too far away from our village. It was only around half a day travel on foot. I asked my uncle to buy me a bicycle to go back and forth from Tokyo to the village every day. He did not protest, as I rarely ever asked for anything and it was bought with my inheritance money anyway. That was also why I was never expected to work on the farms to help them. Not only were they cultivating the fields which were legally mine, but they also used my inheritance to buy everything I needed. So they left me alone to do what I wanted. At the age of 11, I joined the Noma dojo, which was located in Tokyo. This was also the first time I realized just how strong I was. So, how strong was I? One word: overpowered. It might not seem impressive at first, but the 2 skills I had developed, perfect movement and body language, were an absolute cheat. Coupled with my physique, which was apparently as strong as a 15-year-old, then you have someone who could beat the master of the dojo with ease. On the first day, the master of the dojo and I had a spar on my request. We fought, and that was when I realized that fighting was different for me compared to everyone else. How so, you may ask? Well, fighting to me was a conversation. When we started the spar, he did not move his lips, but the master spoke. His first attack was a straight vertical slash, and he told me how many times he had practiced that one single swing, over 10,000 times. The way the muscles on his right arm tensed much more than his left told me that he was right-handed. His eyes that were looking at the left side told me that normally, his attack would be blocked and countered from the left. His feet were planted firmly on the floor, showing his absolute lack of fear towards me. And it also told me that he had no interest in fighting aggressively, he was only trying to demonstrate his skill. His tight shoulders told me exactly where the swing was going to end and how much force was put into it. His bent elbow screamed his next move to me, a horizontal slash from the right. It was overwhelming. He talked a lot. The master told me everything without opening his mouth. The craziest thing was that it happened in under a second. I dodged his swing with perfect movement. I was like water which found the easiest and most effective way to flow. After I dodged, the master had a surprised look on his face, and then he used another attack. Just like I expected, it was a horizontal slash from the right side. I also blocked that with minimal effort. There was no waste of energy when my bakken slammed against his. His attack barely slipped off mine when the wood met. Then it was my turn to attack, and right when I thought of attacking, the master spoke again. This time, he told me about every weakness he had and how he was going to protect himself. His hesitance to step back told me of his arrogance, his greatest weakness. The middle finger on his right was not gripping the handle properly, it was injured. The tight movement on his hips told me of the back pain he had, a combination of old age and many years of training. His right eye was better than the left, which caused an imbalance in sight. He most likely wore glasses to read. He shifted his body weight to his right foot, and that told me how he would have a hard time moving to the right. He blinked and I stepped in. I was not fast, nor did I put power in my footstep, but the ease at which I moved made me twice as fast and looked triple as fast. I was in front of him and I swung at his right side. He quickly took a step back in a show of expert footwork, and then he tried to block. But here's the thing about perfect movement: I only use the necessary muscle group and strength in my actions. So it made it extremely easy to discard said action and make changes midway. So in an instant, I changed my swing to an upward slash that would cut his hand which held the bakken while he tried to block my first attack. But he was experienced, he saw through my attack. With a body superior to mine, he leaned back, almost in a falling motion, to dodge the slash. But he told me he was going to dodge like that even before he did. The way his muscles were currently working and tensed told me exactly what he could and could not do in his position. So I changed the slash again to a stab. I took a step forward and lunged at him. The master could no longer block, and right when he stumbled to a stop, my bakken hit him, stabbing not at his heart but his pancreas. I could see exactly where I was hitting, and without a doubt, he would have died. There was a long moment of stunned silence from him. His body completely froze in shock. Then he said with a strained smile, "Stabbing is not allowed." Right, kendo was a sport, and I remembered the referee talked about the rules of the spar before it started. I didn't look to know what he was saying. I dropped my bakken and bowed. I'm sorry, it's my loss. That day I realized the full extent of the skill I had mastered with the help of the transparent world. Although it was nothing to boast about compared to people like Muichiro Tokido who became a Hashira after 2 months of training when he was the same. But I think I was decently strong enough. I did not know the limit to my skills, but if I could easily read a master kendo like a book, I suppose I would not have a hard time slaying weaker demons. After the spar, I was immediately deemed a prodigy, a once-in-a-millennium genius. In this part of my training, I did not use my transparent world and I learned sword skills from the master and learned how to fight without the help of my eyes. Perfect movement was always there, so I still easily became the strongest in the dojo without the transparent world. It only took me half a year. I would learn sword techniques in the dojo and then after going home, I would completely master that technique and even make improvements with the help of the transparent world. Cycling back and forth every day from the city to the village built my body to be stronger and also increased my stamina many times over. I was able to carry baggages and other objects in my travels after a while. The villagers used me like a mailman, but I did not mind and used it as strength training. I entered many competitions during my time in the dojo and obviously, I emerged victorious in every competition. I even got some fame to my name and added wealth to my inheritance. And just like that, 2 years passed and I was 13 years old. This was when I experienced the hardest part of my training. Author. So what do you think of Seiji's powers and abilities? I made this status to keep up with the information. Status. Name. Seiji Shigen. Age. 13. Physique. Trained adult. Height. 5 feet 5. Main power. Transparent world. Skills. 1. Perfect movement. This gives him the ability to move perfectly with no wasted strength or movement. It allows him to move by working only the necessary muscle groups so he can conserve energy but also make changes in his action midway. It is exactly as its name suggests. This no longer requires the use of the transparent world and remains passive unless he learns complicated movements or techniques which he has never seen or done before. 2. Body language. This requires a transparent world, and using this skill, Seiji literally understands body language. Even the tiniest twitch of your muscle or your breathing pattern and even your heartbeat tells him everything. Seiji can perfectly predict movements before they ever happen, but this depends on how experienced the fighter is. If the opponent is top tier, Seiji might only be able to predict their next move. You are telling him everything basically. End. 45 comments 0 vote. Training Arc 2. Seiji's POV. 2 years passed and I was 13 years old. This was when I experienced the hardest part of my training. Studying. Yes, apparently I had to study even in a fictional world where breathing was a superpower, and in the year 1918. It had something to do with my inheritance. There were real estate, business, money and other investments which were part of the inheritance. And in order to have them legally at the age of 16, I had to have at least a high school level education, or chugako, as they called it. It was either that or I would only be able to access my inheritance at the age of 20. Which was bloody ridiculous because I might not even live to see 20 in my line of work. I was more than aware of just how dangerous the job of a demon slayer was, more than anyone else probably because I watched a demon devour my sister alive and because of my past life knowledge. Even strength could not assure your survival because it was the Hashiras and the strongest people who died in the end. That was why I was so careful in not rushing into the forest blindly to fight demons, unlike a certain wind pillar, even though I was already more than strong na. Some may call it cowardice, but I call it not leaving my life to the whims of luck. Calculating the timeline of the canon with my age, I would be 20 years old when we fight Muzan. That meant I might die even before I saw a penny of my inheritance, so passing high school was a must. So when I was the age of 13, I spent most of my time studying while also training my senses. I was deaf, and that meant I relied heavily on my eyes and I had blind spots. So in order to make up for that, I had to sharpen my instincts and other senses to an extremely high degree. So other than studying, I worked on my spatial awareness. Luckily, I already passed middle school in my past life, so I did not have to start from scratch, and other than history and Japanese, I did not have to study much. Education in the 21st century was undoubtedly superior after all. The exam for high school was nationwide. That meant that even if you didn't go to school, you could study by yourself and pass the exam. It was the eve of the First World War, so no one had time to waste a whole day going to school, so people mostly took this kind exam. I was among them, and after a total of 4 months of preparation, I passed high school successfully on my first try. My uncle and aunt were so happy with my achievement, as even high school level education was impressive during this time. After I was done with my exams and got my results, I finally focused on the most important aspect for demon slaying. Breathing styles. I figured I would pick up the skill easily, especially with the transparent world. If people like Inosuke could invent their own breathing style, why the hell should I not be able to? This will be a piece of cake, I said, and looked at my reflection in the mirror. My gaze pierced through my flesh and bones, and I focused on my lungs, which were noticeably bigger than average. Lung training was obviously part of my physique training schedule since I knew how important it was. I trained using a gourd like it was shown in the anime, and I also came up with my own method of training, which included holding my breath for long periods of time. Now I had a powerful set of lungs which should be able to support even the sun breathing, hopefully. I had covered all of the basics. I had trained my body, and learned how to swing a sword, which was an understatement as I was the under-18 national kendo champion, and I had gotten familiar with my eyes as well. The only thing left was to have my own breathing style. ... Long story short, I was able to learn the skill, but I failed to get a breathing style. I could enhance my body thought breathing. I was probably the best at it since I had a massive advantage, but I failed at creating my own unique breathing style. The concept of breathing style was simple: take in huge amounts of air in your lungs and absorb the oxygen. That would increase the amount of oxygen in your bloodstream, giving you superhuman abilities. I was able to do that. What I was not able to do though was find the pattern which differentiates every breathing style. I realized this soon enough, but I think I would be able to succeed after seeing someone use any breathing style in action. This was why after the initial failures, I stopped instead of trying to find the answer myself. Why waste time when I could get my answer by seeing a demon slayer fight once? So, that's how I learned the basic breathing style. I called it steroid breathing because it's true and funny. Everything you need to know is in the name. It was an incomplete breathing style that did not have any particular special attribute but worked well in enhancing every stats I had. After that, I finally decided it was time to end the training arc. I was exactly as old as I was when I died in my past life. I was 13 years and 7 months old. It was also the exact age Tanjiro was when his family was killed, so I thought it was the perfect year. Both I and the MC would start our story at the same age. So at the age of 13, I began my journey. My main goal was to travel to Mt. Fuji Kasane for the final selection this year, and on my way. Hunt some demons. That's right, you ugly sons of bitches. Revenge time. ... Dash 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 dash. Author: 3 chapters released. Status: Name: Seiji Shigen. Age: 13. Height: 5 feet 5. Physique: highly trained adult. Main power: transparent world. Breathing style: incomplete. Basic enhancement: Steroid breathing. Sword skill. Easily Hashira level in sword skills alone. But he is still below Hashira when it came to fighting with sword as he lacks experience. Meaning if it was Swordman versus Swordman, he would rival any Hashira in pure skill, but in Swordman versus Demon, his sword skill may prove to be more ineffective. Skills. 1. Perfect movement. This gives him the ability to move perfectly with no wasted strength or movement. It allows him to move by working only the necessary muscle groups so he can conserve energy but also make changes in his action midway. It is exactly as its name suggests. This no longer requires the use of the transparent world and remains passive unless he learns complicated movements or techniques which he has never seen or done before. 2. Body language. This requires a transparent world, and using this skill, Seiji literally understands body language. Even the tiniest twitch of your muscle or your breathing pattern and even your heartbeat tells him everything. Seiji can perfectly predict movements before they ever happen, but this depends on how experienced the fighter is. If the opponent is top tier, Seiji might only be able to predict their next move. You are telling him everything basically. End. 20 comments 0 vote. First demon, Seiji's Pav. At the age of 13 years old, I began my journey. The plan was to direct all of my teenage spite and rebellious phase towards the demons. Since I died at the age of 13 in my past life, the demons were in for 2 lifetimes worth of teenage angst. I pity them. I'll be leaving now, I said to my uncle and aunt who had been taking care of me for many years now. I know nothing we say is going to make you stay, so what else can we do? My uncle sighed. Good luck in your travels, my boy. Take care of yourself, Seiji. Make sure you send us letters. And always remember you have a home with us, my aunt said while wiping tears from her eyes. I gave them a deep bow to show my respect and appreciation. They were the closest thing I had to a family. We might have even been closer and happier if I just opened up during all these years. But ever since what happened that night, I put a certain distance between myself and other people. It was because of fear of losing a family again and because of what I wanted to do. My heart was still too bitter for that kind of love. Thank you for taking care of me, I said and bowed just a tad bit deeper. I hope they live for a long time. I hope they single-handedly increase the average life expectancy of a Japanese, which was 45 years old. After saying farewell, I left the house and then the village. I did not tell them what I was going to do exactly, only that I was going to leave to travel by myself and that it was an important thing to me. I had told them about it since I was young, so they couldn't refute and knew it was inevitable. In addition, traveling alone like this from village to village was not a rare thing. There were many people who did it for adventure or to find a permanent village where they could settle. So I was able to leave with their blessing. I had a katana strapped to my side. It was forged by one of the most famous smiths in Japan, and it was given to me as a gift when I finally beat the master of my dojo fair and square when I was 12. I also carried a bag with me that had essential tools like first aid, clean water, tools and a few utensils if I ever wanted to camp in the forest. I think there were some canned foods as well that my aunt packed for me. I bought a map from the city so I was half aware of where I should go. The journey to Mount Fuji Kasane would take me roughly 2 weeks if I traveled on foot, but I expect to reach the mountain in a month. This was because I wanted to hunt demons and get experience before entering the final selection. Another reason would be that I just wanted to enjoy the journey. A question to all my 21st century readers: did you know how beautiful Japan was? Especially during the early 1900s when nature was still virgin, mostly untouched by humans and pollution. It was insane when I thought about how much we ruined nature in the span of only a century. But for now, the world was beautiful. And I really like beautiful things. My eyes could fully comprehend the beauty of nature in all its glory. I could see the air rushing through the forest, a relieving breeze. I could see every reflection of light from the leaves and every moss on the rocks. I saw colors that had names and those without, colors which a normal person would never see. If people saw beauty like I did, I think everyone would fall in love as well. It would have been even more beautiful if I was able to travel during the day, but alas, I was not perfect. I slept during the day and traveled during the night. One of the reasons I did it was because I wanted to be attacked by a demon. But the main reason I slept during the day was because I was deaf. Imagine I slept during the night when demons were roaming around. I hate to admit it, but I was a deep sleeper. I was more vulnerable than anyone else when I was sleeping. So I could only sleep during the day when I knew for certain demons won't attack me. I could only sleep when I knew they were hiding in some dark caves or in a hole. Not to mistake this to be an absolute weakness though. I trained all of my other senses, especially my sense of smell and touch, to be extremely sensitive, so I was still not completely defenseless. Anyways, during the day I slept and at night I traveled. People were kind and there were many huts or small villages all over Japan, so I would just ask nicely for a place to sleep and they were happy to say yes. I was not sure if I was lucky or unlucky, but I did not encounter any demons in the first 2 days of my travel. It was only on the third day, while I was trekking up the mountain of Akihara, that I encountered my first demon. And oh man, was it an experience. Mount Akihara was cold all year round, but since it was not winter, there was no snow. The mountain was a named one, which meant that it was significantly larger than the usual mountains. People rarely visited the mountain due to its high altitude, harsh condition, and because it was not the only route. Actually, it was the longer route compared to the bridge route which led to the same place. But I remember I chose the mountain route because of 2 reasons. The hope of encountering a demon and the desire to catch sunrise at the peak of the mountain. How beautiful that must be. The air was extremely thin and it only got worse the higher I climbed. The air was frigid and each inhalation would freeze my lungs and cause a slight discomfort on my nasal cavity. Nevertheless, I was well trained, so it barely bothered me. I did not know if there were animals or insects, but I imaged them chirping loudly in the silence and isolation of the night. There was a small and rugged trail up the mountain which was covered in vegetation because it was rarely used. The trees in the mountains had thick roots and barely any branches in order to endure the strong winds that undoubtedly blew on the mountain all year round. It was absolutely dark with no light other than the stars and the moon. But the dark never bothered me because, with the transparent world, the world was perpetually visible. Therefore, I noticed immediately the sudden change in the wind. There was something rushing at me from my side and the smell of blood and rotten corpse filled my nose. I stopped, and right then, a demon came out from the forest to my left. His body flew across the trail and right past me at a speed that made me raise my eyebrows. Had I not stopped, his body would have crashed on me and probably break every bone I had. His action was calculated and it also took my footsteps into consideration. It was like a predator leaping at its prey. Well, that was embarrassing. I commented at his monumental miss as his body sprawled to a stop at the side of the trail. But don't worry, no one else saw that, I said, but he did not appreciate my words. He growled at me like an animal with his veins popping out on his face. I promise I won't tell a soul, I said, and he lunged at me. It was a pity, if he had not revealed himself he might have stood a chance. But the brief instance already allowed me to study his body in detail. I already knew how strong he was, what his main strength was, and everything in between. He told me everything already. His body disappeared in a burst of speed and force, leaving a shockwave behind as he shot at me like a cannon. A series of actions that was painfully slow with my eyes though. Short burst of power, that was his whole gimmick. He looked like a middle-aged man wearing a white houri and with a pale skin. He had thick powerful legs and bulbous forearms to which spear-like fingers were attached. I took a single step, bent my knees and leaned back to dodge his second attempt at taking my head. It was a swift and precise dodge and he missed again. But he did not stop and he landed on a tree horizontally before he quickly pushed himself off the trunk of the tree. Then he bounced around the trees in the mountains at blinding speed, for normal eyes of course. I think he was trying to confuse me and make it harder to dodge. But it was still painfully obvious to me. He might not speak with words, but actions speak louder than words. The directions he was looking at, the way he placed his feet after landing, the way his neck muscle tensed, and the position of the tree itself told me exactly when he was going to lunge at me or when he was going to jump to another tree like a monkey. I could easily telegraph his movement. At last, he shot at me again. His body became a blur of fluttering white and I positioned my body sideways to make him miss me by a hair's breadth. An explosion of air and dirt followed as the demon planted his hand on the ground. When the dust settled, he was crouching down with a shocked, almost fearful look in his eyes. He was mere inches beside me, so I playfully chopped at his head with my hand. That was also when his eyes fell on my katana and I saw in great detail how his muscles tightened in fear and his heartbeat took a stark turn. His heart previously beat rapidly in excitement, but now it was thumping loudly in fear. He must have mistook me for a high-ranking demon slayer. He was smart enough to realize that he was in danger. He pushed himself off the ground in an attempt to flee. Too bad he told me of his plan to run a second before he even moved. I finally pulled out my katana, and right when he thought he had successfully made an escape, I sliced his ankle, and when he tried to take another step, his entire foot came off. With the sudden imbalance and misdirected force, he rolled like a doll. He was weak, pathetically so. He talked a lot as well. But one thing that was infinitely interesting to me was the difference between a human body and a demon's body. The difference was not obvious, but if you looked closely, you could see how they were two entirely different things. Demons' muscles were thicker and way more active than a man's. They were extremely tight and they moved even at the cost of being ripped apart. That was only the start, as demons also had thicker bones and their blood flow was unnatural. Their blood did not rely solely on the heart to travel throughout their body. At a glance, I could tell that with their healing factor, the limiter in their brain was effectively removed. It was said that humans were only able to use one-third of our true strength so that we do not harm our own bodies. But that was not the case for demons. They could use 100% of their strength at all times. That was one of the reasons for their superhuman strength, other than the obvious magical factor, of course. Incredible, I said when I saw the way his wound closed. I could see his body heat increase rapidly and his ankle release smoke while it regenerated. I have to know more about this, I said, and the demon turned back to look at me with evident fear on his face. But there was also a newfound anger and relief. Your sword, it's not a Nichiren blade, he said. I tilted my head. Yes, believe it or not, no blacksmith or weapon dealer in Tokyo knew about the Nichiren blade. I couldn't find them at all. Then you can't kill me, he said, and a crooked smile came onto his face. I nodded, affirming his statement. Indeed, his foot healed, and then he rushed at me with incredible speed and a newfound confidence at the fact that I didn't have a Nichiren, the bane of all demons. After all, why should he be afraid when I couldn't kill him? He probably thought he was being sneaky, but his body language revealed his sneak attack long ago. I leaned back slightly and tilted my head just enough for his claw to nick the first layer of my skin. Then I took a sharp breath and used my incomplete breathing style. Steroid breathing. Yes, I was serious in naming it that. My speed doubled and I pulled out my katana with swiftness that the demon could not even behold. My attack was perfect, without any unnecessary energy or movement. It aimed true and it did its job just precisely. Under his shaking eyes, the demon saw his arm literally being peeled off by my blade. Cutting them or chopping them would take necessary energy and more than one movement, so I simply carved out his flesh from the bone with a circular motion. It was effective but brutal for the enemy. Luckily, I was deaf, so I did not hear the shrilling scream of agony released by the demon. He fell on his back, watching in horror at his arm, which was only white bone. He was healing, but the regeneration seemed extremely painful as he writhed like a worm. Yay, I cannot kill you, I said, and slowly approached him while he tried to crawl away. But you said that like it's a good thing for you. A swift death would have been preferable to what I did to him next. The demon became my first victim. I used him as a way to vent out years of hatred and bitterness. I also used him as a way to get myself familiar with a demon's biology, which was vital for the transparent world, and test the limits of their healing factor. At one point he prayed for Sarais. Dash 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 dash. Author. How was the chapter? Was it too brutal? If it's not obviously already, the MC is low-key insane. 36 comments, 0 vote. Mount Fuji Kasane. Seiji's Pav. Please, please, please. No more, no more. I wonder how many people have said the same thing to him as he tore them apart, limb by limb. If I were to guess from his strength and from how my sister cried and begged while the demon ate her alive, I would say at least hundreds. Stop talking. Move. Run, I said to his dismembered body which was not healing anymore. I needed him to move to get myself familiar with the demon and learn the language of their unique body. There was blood along the small trail and pieces of his demon flesh splattered everywhere. He had made a great effort to run away and fight back at first, but after a while, he gave up. Now his body did not even heal when I cut him. He just laid on the ground, dismembered, like a useless corpse. The only movement in his body was on his lips, which moved to form incoherent words. I stood over him and watched. His face stopped morphing into agonizing shapes while ago and he had stopped crying. He just stared ahead like a dead fish with a blank sheet for a face. It was no longer stimulating. The sun rose not long after and the demon finally had a reaction again. His face stretched in relief and tears fell from his eyes. He was happy to see the sun. The sunlight shone on him and his body dissipated like ash. His blood and splattered pieces of flesh also disappeared. In just a few seconds, there was no longer any evidence of the demon ever existing. That was definitely an experience, I told myself. I might have gotten a little overboard since he was the first demon I encountered. Recalling the helplessness I felt that night, the power I had over a demon now was intoxicating. It was like a drug that filled the bottomless rage and hate I had inside. It was not a good thing, I knew. I could not just blindly hate demons because I knew there were many good demons like Nezuko, Tamayo, Yushiro etc. and demons who were just as much of a victim as human. I also knew feeding such negative emotions and walking the path of endless revenge was not wise. I watched Naruto, okay. But I was only 13, so allow me to be childish and petty. I still have time to grow. I continued my journey after that. I had enough time to reach the top of the mountain and I watched the sunrise like I wanted to. Then I head towards Mount Fuji again. I was not in a mood to sleep, so I continued traveling the entire morning and only slept after noon. Days passed, and to my silent delight, I encountered demons every night since then. They were not as powerful as the first one, but they were enough for self-training and research. I also practiced my breathing style a lot during this time. I realized the huge gap between the physical prowess of a demon and a human, so it highlighted to me the importance of breathing styles. The mountains and the forest provided great training as well. It tested the limits of my endurance and gave me the perfect environment to train my senses. To get stronger, I had to rewire my mind and accept that the logic of my past life did not apply to this world. I often struggled with that while I was young. At one point in my journey, I encountered a village that was plagued by a demon with blood demon art. It was during the final week of my travels. The demon was a beautiful woman who could hypnotize and brainwash people with the sound of her voice. Her blood demon art worked similarly to sirens from what I could understand. The demon realized that if she acted smart, she could have unlimited food supply instead of hunting for human every night. So she brainwashed the villagers and managed the village to suit her need. The whole village was under her command and she was rearing the humans like cattle. The women's population in the village was more than the men's by around 10 to 1. The village had a weird customs and other practices that would ultimately increase the birth rates. Mostly males would be eaten and women were kept like breeding tools to give the demon an infinite food supply. The men in the village were just enough to maintain the farm and get the women pregnant. Honestly, it was a fucked up village and rarely visited by people because when they did, the visitors would be hypnotized and eaten. It was the demon's personal human farm. Obviously the blood demon art of the demon did not work since I was deaf. At first, I did not even notice it and I thought it was just a really strange village with strange traditions. But when I heard the women talking about how proud they were of their sons sacrificing themselves to the gods, I knew there was something wrong. Honestly, my experience in the village could be an entirely different book on its own, but we shall not tell that story today. Maybe in another volume, I would tell about my experience in the village in detail. So I fought with the demon who was controlling the villagers and it was my most challenging battle yet. The demon had many years to feast on human flesh, so she was powerful. But she fell swiftly like everyone else because she was at a disadvantage. Her blood demon art did not work on a deaf person. After the demon's control over the village was gone, the villagers almost went mad. They still retained the memories of what happened, so they knew the horrible things they were manipulated into doing. Be it sacrificing their children, killing travelers and offering them to the demon, or committing many acts of debauchery. I did not stay long in the village. I left after telling them what happened was not their fault and to blame the demons for everything. And to start anew. The village would be the last one I visit in my journey because there was no way in hell I wanted to get into another mess. //////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////// At last, after more than a month of traveling, I reached the base of Mount. I did not even have to look at the map to confirm I was there because the sweet scent of a particular flower filled the air. Beautiful flower trees covered the mountain to give it a distinctive look compared to the rest of the surroundings. I did not have to be told that they were wisteria trees. They were the color of lavender and they covered most of the mountain. I was truly stunned by their beauty, especially when they released a faint glow in the dark of the night, almost like they had magical properties within them. There was a small village at the base of the mountain. They were the people from the Demon Slayer Corps, but they were not demon slayers. Instead, they were people stationed in the mountains to maintain the wisteria trees. They were gardeners essentially. Some of them were retired demon slayers while others were workers who used wisteria to create different products like the wisteria incense. There was a whole industry for wisteria products at the base of Mount Fuji. When I went to them and told them about why I had come to the mountain, I received the unfortunate news that the final selection was still a few weeks away. Oh, the horror of being forced to wait. But my time at Mount Fuji's the following weeks would not go to waste as I met someone who would become one of the most important person in my life. I thought I will be the only one who came early for the final selection. It seems I was wrong. There are still people whose hearts are burning hotter than mine. I was deaf, but even I knew the guy was loud. It was only the second day after I reached Mount Fuji, the place where the final selection would take place. He came up to me while I was sleeping under one of the wisteria trees, their beauty casting drowsiness on me. That was when I met him. Hello comrade, my name is Kyojiro Rengoku. It's nice to meet you. Image. Dash 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 dash. Author, I want to take this moment to ask for stones. The book finally has enough words to be on the rankings. Please let's have good week and attract lots of new readers. Add the book to your collection and a review would also be helpful. Join my Patreon to read 10 chapters ahead. Also there are polls regarding female leads and MC's weapon on the Patreon. Patreon. Emmanuel_Capricorn. 38 comments 0 vote. Rengoku Kyojiro. Seiji's Pav. Hello comrade, my name is Kyojiro Rengoku. It's nice to meet you. I still remember that day so vividly. The warm sunlight peeked through the wisteria trees and caressed my skin. The brightness was no longer a bother that stopped me from sleeping, instead, it had become comfortable out of habit. He came up to me with all the loudness of a day. For a moment I thought I had regained my hearing. His presence was like the sun, unapologetic for shining so brighter than everyone else. I lazily opened my eyes to give him a look and I was awestruck. He was beautiful, in an artistic way of course. If God were an artist, he would be considered a masterpiece. A tall frame filled with muscles that were designed solely to fight and swing a sword. There was a wild aura, a fighting spirit if you will, that surrounded his body at all times. His organs were healthy and fresh, like the parts of a brand new car. They were free of blemishes, no drugs, no tobacco or unhealthy lifestyles had affected them. His body proportion and bone structure spoke of his genetic blessing. From his great-grandfather, they were a swordsman, and his existence itself was the result of many generations of selective reproduction. Not arranged marriage, but more so that he was the direct line of the strongest sons. He was bred to be a powerful swordsman. Hi, my name is Kyojiro Rengoku, nice to meet you, he announced for a second time. He was a tall young man who seemed to be about a year older than me. He had long bright yellow hair with red streaks akin to flames along with 2 shoulder-length bangs and 2 chin-length bangs on the side of his head. He had black forked eyebrows, and golden eyes that faded to red with white pupils. He wore a yellow haori with flame patterns. He had a very unique pair of eyes and I found myself staring at them. "Hi, my name is Kyojiro Rengoku, nice to meet you." And that was the 3rd time he said the same thing. I got the feeling that he was the type of person who would never stop unless I replied. "Hello Kyojiro Rengoku, my name is Shigen Seiji. It's a pleasure to meet you as well," I said to the future flame Hashira. He laughed. "What a plain voice you have for someone who seemed to burn with passion." It was funny because I got that lot. They said my voice had absolutely no intonation and it sounded completely flat as if I was speaking in the same octave. "I guess I came to you at the wrong time. I apologize for waking you up," he said, but the wide smile on his face told me that he was not really sorry. "But may I ask why you are sleeping on such a beautiful morning?" "I didn't sleep last night," I said and got comfortable leaning on the tree again. Rengoku hit his palm with a fist in a gesture of realization. "Oh, I see you were hunting demons all night. I should have guessed." It was interesting to meet one of the most beloved characters in Demon Slayer. Unfortunately, like many characters beloved by the fans, he died at the hands of the demon Akaza. I actually cried when I saw his death as well. "Wait, who died? Oops, did I say that out loud?" "Nothing," I said and closed my eyes. Although it was an exciting experience to meet him, I was too tired and sleepy to care. Maybe after a much-needed sleep, I would interact with him more. He said he was here for the final selection, so it's not like he would disappear soon. "Seeing you resting so peacefully makes me want to rest as well. Would it be a problem if I rest beside you?" he asked, but I had already closed my eyes so I didn't hear it. But apparently, Rengoku was the type of person to take silence as consent because he sat down and leaned against the same tree I did and he closed his eyes. He had also traveled day and night to reach the mountain and he needed rest even more than I. So the first time we met, we both rested under the same tree, tired from our fighting and journey respectively. The wisteria tree provided a calming shade which was perfect for a nap. From then on, Rengoku would stay by my side and quickly take the position of my first friend. A question from the readers: how do introverts like you make friends? The answer is we don't. An extrovert found us, liked us and adopted us. And that day, Kyojiro Rengoku found me. We woke up in the afternoon and I met with an odd realization that Rengoku was actually dead tired when I first met him. After the nap, he was smiling brighter and became visibly louder than before. But his smile and thunderous character were not annoying by any means, instead, it was an endearing trait that people liked about him. His charisma was off the charts. In just a few hours, he became closer to the people living at the base of the mountain than I was ever able to get in 2 days. He saw me as a kindred soul, a fellow swordsman who wanted to do good in the world and become a demon slayer who protected the innocents. So he stuck close to me and tried to get me to open up to him. Well, good luck with that. My uncle and aunt failed to do so even after 6 years. And I think he took that as a challenge. Something about his charisma and extrovert personality wanted to get close to me and become friends. There was nothing wrong with me per se, I was not some edgy motherfucker who strived to be alone just for the sake of it. I just never bothered putting effort into connecting with other people except for being acquaintances. I believed that was enough. There was also another reason. I was extremely bad when it came to people. Being deaf in my past life, I never had a meaningful relationship. And the people close to me in this second life were all brutally killed by a demon. So you could not exactly blame me for my flaws. Rengoku knew this and he made sure to be vocal about it as well. "Hey, do you know it's really creepy when you stare at people whenever they talk? The workers told me that's why they didn't like talking to you," Rengoku said. I learned that he was honest like a child and he could also be quite blunt. I liked that about him. "Is it?" I mused. "Yes, and the fact that you never respond to most people who talks to you. You seem to ignore everyone else except people who confronted you face to face," he said with a nod of his head as if to affirm his own words. I had to use my eyes and red lips to know what people were saying. And if they were out of my sight, I could not even notice them when they spoke to me. Well, tell them I'm sorry for being deaf, I said, and his eyes widened and he stopped walking. You are deaf? He asked, but since he was behind me I didn't know it. He put his hand on my shoulder and I turned to him. You are deaf? Yes, I am deaf in both ears. I lost my hearing from a demon, I said, and I could see he was stunned. I could also see the apology on his face. Since I had such incredible eyesight, people rarely noticed that I was deaf. And I never liked advertising my disability either, so there were often misunderstandings. I see, I should have noticed, he said. It's fine, it happens all the time, I said and continued walking. Rengoku took a few seconds to collect his thought before he followed behind me. We were currently on our way to another mountain close by. Mount Fuji was filled with wisteria trees, so it repelled demons. In order to hunt them, we had to move to another mountain. Rengoku said he wanted to join me, and since I also had an interest in seeing him fight, I allowed him. Now it was the both of us, moving through the mountain road to hunt the creatures of the night. We had sleep in the morning, so we were filled with energy. We did not encounter any demons during the night. Apparently, the demons knew to stay the fuck away from Mount Fuji. So Rengoku and I spent the time just wandering around under the bright moonlight. We talked quite a bit during this time. It was mostly about how I was able to talk when I was deaf and other related things. Like I said, he was a charming man, so I quite enjoyed the time. It was only near the break of dawn that we encountered a demon. I was able to see him while we were at a high altitude, and I saw him running at the base of the opposite mountain. The demon had blood all over his body, which told us that he just had a successful hunt and he was now running back home to who knows where before sunrise. We ran down the mountain immediately, and with my eyes focused on the demon like a hawk, I led us to a route that directly crossed paths with the demon. When we caught up with the demon, Rengoku's aura changed and his smile faded away. He ran past me and with his hand gripping the hilt of his sword, he said, "Leave him to me," and that's what I did. I watched Rengoku rush at the demon, who tried to run away the moment he saw us. I didn't remember the flame Hashira to be a speedster, but he was extremely fast even at his young age. I took the chance to observe in detail how breathing style worked. This could be what allowed me to complete my own breathing style. Rengoku caught up with the fleeing demon with ease, and when he did, he sucked in huge volumes of air. So much so that a small vortex formed near his mouth. My purple eyes released an eerie glow as I used the full power of the transparent world. Then all of the secrets in the world were laid bare in front of my eyes. I saw the way Rengoku's lungs expanded to a ridiculous degree. His body started producing an insane amount of body heat, and that gave him a boost in strength. I also observed in detail the pattern of his breath. Unlike my breathing where I inhaled to maximize each breath, he did it in a well-formulated pattern. His yellow haori with flame patterns lit up, and I was stumped when I witnessed the next scene. There was a trail of fire coming out of his mouth, and then his katana caught on fire. The edge of his sword released a trail of fire that lit up the darkness of the forest. "Flame breathing, first form," he said. "Unknowing fire." He swung his blade horizontally and it created a perfect arc of deadly flames. His blade met the neck of the demon with a raging roar of fire, and the head was sliced off in an instant. The headless demon fell on the ground, and a few seconds later, his body disintegrated. I stopped in my track and just stared while Rengoku sheathed his katana and the flames died down. I was confused. I remembered reading somewhere that the elemental visuals were only put in the anime for imagination, and that in reality, there were no flashy scenes. But what I just witnessed was exactly like the anime. Was it real, or was I able to see it because of my special vision? Image. Dash 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 dash. Give me stones. Author. I am adding the visuals in my story for the simple reason that it's cool. But explanation goes that MC is able to see them because of his eyes. Join my Patreon to participate in polls and read 10 chapters ahead. Patreon. Emmanuel_Capricorn. 44 comments 0 vote. Flame breathing. Seiji's Pav. It was beautiful. I have to learn that. Rengoku slowly sheathed his sword while releasing air from his lungs. I remained rooted in my place until he turned to me with his signature smile that burned even brighter than his flames. It's done, my friend. Our night patrol was not a waste, he said, and then followed up with a hearty laugh. Meanwhile, I stared at him with a blank face but with many thoughts swirling in my mind. It was clearly stated that breathing styles could not actually achieve supernatural powers like encasing a sword with fire. But I clearly saw it happen. Hey, did you see the flames? I asked. Huh, what flames? He tilted his head in confusion, and that proved my suspicion that it was only me who could see the flames when he used his breathing. Do you mean my breathing style? I used flame breathing, he said, and then his eyebrows lifted up. Wait, how do you know what breathing style I used? I never told you. So it was my eyes. My eyes enabled me to see the effects of breathing when normal eyes couldn't. It was similar to how I was able to see the colors of gas in the atmosphere if I tried. The transparent world was more than just having X-ray vision and better eyesight to me. I didn't know if it was the case for everyone else or if it was just me, but I could see impossible colors. I could even ultraviolet rays, infrared, radiation, etc. My eyes allowed me to perceive the world as it truly was, without limitations. I have seen a flame-breathing user before. I lied, but due to my perpetual flat tone, no one could tell. Oh, I see. I wonder if it was my father that you saw or anyone else, he hummed to himself. Should we return? I feel like the sun is about to rise soon, he said. Seeing how the demon was wildly trying to run back to his hideout, it was safe to assume that the sun was rising soon. Yes, I said, and we both returned to Mount Fuji. My thoughts returned back to my eyes and what I could do with its capabilities. Being able to see breathing styles was quite an advantage, especially if you go up against another breath user. It could tell me exactly what type of breathing they were using, when they were using it, and even differentiate what form they were using over time. It was no different than a boxer telegraphing his opponent's move by looking at his shoulder. If I could see breathing styles, then I must be able to see the blood demon art of demons as well. This could be an absolute game changer. When Tanjiro was fighting against the lower moon Yahaba and Susumaru, he was able to deflect Their attacks only when Tanjiro could see the arrow, Their blood demon art, with the help of Yushiro. I smiled at the thought. I just added a new vocabulary to my dictionary for the language of fighting. Dash 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 dash. The next day, our blades collided and released a spark of impact and friction. My eyes saw everything in detail, from the condition of both our swords to the vibrations released by them. If I had ears, I would describe the vibration as the sound of steel clashing steel. His Nichiren blade was well made, but it couldn't compare to mine, which was crafted by one of the greatest smiths in Japan. I could see that his sword did not get enough heat and hammering when it was made. It was made by a smith who put no effort or passion in its creation, it was just one amongst the mass-produced. An ordinary Nichiren blade. If my eyes were telling the truth, I could break it after a couple of well-placed strikes, exactly 4 inches below the tip. The sword was not only ordinary, but it had seen a lot of uses. The weakness at the tip told me that it was sharpened more times there, since that part of the sword was mainly used for slicing, and made it thinner than the rest. We pushed each other away when there was no winner in the clash. It was just a split-second observation, but I had already learned a way to win if this was a real battle. Ha 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 ha, what a strange experience it is to fight against you. Rengoku said and gripped his sword tighter. It feels like I am fighting against my own shadow. We were currently engaged in a spar he initiated after we woke up from our morning sleep. He said he wanted to see how well he would fare against me, and I was more than happy to talk with him, or should I say fight. Nevertheless, I wouldn't give up that easy, he said and pushed off the ground with such force that he disappeared to the untrained eyes. Rengoku was a talented fighter. As the future Hashira, he was already a monster even before he became an official demon slayer. It was just as you would expect, every Hashira was built different. I took a step back to throw off his attack. He expected me to remain in place or charge at him for another clash, so he was thrown off when I stepped back. His sword came at me still, but it was not at the correct distance and his body was leaning too much. He threw a flurry of slashes at me and I easily deflected them with minimal ease and a placid face. He might be strong, but he was still inexperienced, especially when it came to fighting another swordsman. He had trained all his life not to be a proper swordsman but to be a demon slayer. Therefore he was not familiar with fighting another swordsman. After all, you could count the number of demons using a sword with one hand. He had more experience fighting demons who mostly used their bare hands, claws or other weapons, which was rarely a sword. On the other hand, I was a master of kendo, which was a discipline restricted to only fighting other swordsmen. So he could not compare to me when fighting each other. There were levels to these things. But then he was physically stronger than me because of his age. He was 1 year older than me, and that might not seem much when you were an adult, but it made a huge difference when you were in your teens. It was a time when your body developed the most, so 1 year allowed Rengoku to be much stronger than me. But in the end, the sheer difference in our overall combat power boiled down to my special eyes. Now imagine this. Imagine you were seeing the world and everything in slow motion. Imagine your eyes had the ability to zoom in and observe every little detail of the world. Imagine you had X-ray vision and you could see your opponent's muscles, so you could predict his every movement. You know his body better than him. And then imagine your opponent talking to you every moment of the fight. He tells you his every plan, and every course of his action. Not only that, he tells you about his fighting style and how he had trained and more. He tells you about how he feels, what he thinks, and even things he did not know himself. Of course, he was not actually talking, but actions speak louder than words. That was my world, a transparent world where you could see everything. That was what it felt like to be me. To me, fighting was not fast, fighting was not violence. It was a conversation, and if it got tough, a debate. My opponent said things with his action and I replied with my own action. Every movement held meaning and we exchanged them, we matched them. Flame breathing. First form. Unknowing fire. Rengoku never opened his mouth, but he said that. I knew because the pattern of his breaths, the expansion of his lungs, the grip on his swords, and everything else matched what he did last night. He released fire from his mouth and his sword caught on fire. That was another giveaway. It seemed he had finally decided to add a new word to our fight. I smiled because the conversation was getting quite dull, so it was a pleasant change. I tightened the grip on my sword and took a deep breath as well. Then I utilized my own incomplete version of a breathing style that boosted my physical stats to the limit. Steroid breathing. His burning sword came at me faster and more intense than ever before. Maybe it was because of the visual, but I felt heat coming from him. Our swords became blurs of images and we exchanged lethal blows at each other. The ground underneath us shook and we stirred up dust that covered the entire vicinity. I could break his sword, but I decided not to be an asshole. His attack hesitated when the dust blinded his vision. He still knew where I was and where to strike, but without his full vision, he was afraid of accidentally hurting me. So his sword faltered. What a nice ass dude. I swept his feet off the ground with the blunt side of my sword and he fell on his back. When the dust settled, he was on the ground and my sword was pointing at his neck. I guess I lost, he said, but still smiled like a winner. You hesitated. I told you I have good eyes, I could see through the dust. I said. And I could not. Winning was not worth even a small chance of harming my friend, he said. He sure knows how to take the joy out of winning. Now I couldn't even gloat about my victory. I offered him a hand before pulling him up to his feet. I helped him clean the dust off his haori before he started laughing. You are quite amazing, my deaf friend. But I can't help but notice your horrendous breathing form. Tell me, who taught you that? He said and patted me on the back. No one. I made it myself. Aha, no wonder it's so horrible. He laughed. Hey, I worked hard on it. I don't mean to discard your effort, Seiji-san. But you missed the fundamentals of breathing styles itself, he said. If you truly did not have anyone to teach you, how about I teach you my breathing style? he said with a wide grin on his face and eyes shining with excitement. I was honestly not prepared for such a statement. I was already trying to copy his breathing style, but it would be even better if he could teach me. But why would he? I thought he would be a bit more reserved with spreading the flame breathing. Was he okay with offering such power to a random stranger he met a few days ago? Why, I couldn't help but ask. If it was me, I wouldn't go around teaching every random bloke I see. Just look at what happened to someone like Kyojiro when they got power. Why not? You are my friend, he said. It was strange how such a simple answer like, why not, could make so much sense when said by the right person. Rengoku was not like me. He did not have an evil bone in his body, so thoughts like mine never even crossed his mind. It was honestly a stupid naivety in a world of evil and demons. But I couldn't help but be captivated by such innocent naivety. Right, I said. Friends, huh? I smiled. ... Image of MC. Dash 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 dash. Author. If you guys are wondering, yes, his eyes are way more special than normal transparent world. He just haven't realized it yet. Join my Patreon to read 10 chapters ahead. Participate in polls and support the author. Patreon. Emmanuel_Capricorn. 45 comments 0 vote. Breathing styles and training. Seiji's Pav. Here's an interesting fact about the future flame Hashira. Did you know that he learned his breathing style mostly through the diary and manuals left behind by the previous flame Hashiras? It shocked me at first because I thought he would at least get some training from his father, but no, other than a few guidances and a beatdown where he told his son how pointless his training was, the father was a useless bum. Don't let him catch me saying that though. He still had deep respect for his father and wouldn't allow anyone to badmouth him. He admired his father for all he had done, and Rengoku did not blame him for how he turned out to be. A profession like his could really break any man, my friend said. His father had been strong for long enough. He had saved enough lives. Now it was his turn to do so, it was his turn to carry his father's burden. That's what he told me. Anyway, let's shift the topic to more interesting matters. Breathing styles. Just like Rengoku said, I had been going horrendously wrong this whole time. It was no wonder I wasn't able to use it properly, much less complete my own breathing style. The problem lay in my simplistic thought and lack of creativity. I was too caught up on logic and what I remembered from the show. You take in huge amounts of air and increase the amount of oxygen in your blood so that your muscles have a boost in energy and performance. I lived by that statement and it was wrong. I am not sure how I could compare it, but let me try it this way. Imagine a breath could be any number and my capacity for one breath was 10. So I go, 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 equals 50. I took in as much air as possible and forced my body to absorb all the oxygen it could get. But that was a primitive way of doing it. I learned that using unique breathing patterns and correct forms could have huge effects in the way my body got enhanced. So I could go like, 10x5 equals 50. Using a proper pattern and knowing exactly what I wanted to achieve allowed me to increase the efficiency of my breaths many times over. What took 5 huge breaths could be achieved using 2 if proper technique was applied. Then there were many other things that could be taken into account as well. There were proper ways to exhale and the way you matched your breaths with your heartbeat. And posture could have a significant impact. Take the negative number as an exhalation. Minus 10x9 plus 10 equals 100. It's all about the patterns. And just like how you could have a positive effect, if you did an incorrect form and pattern, you could have a negative effect. 9 plus 10 plus 10x0 plus 5 equals 5. I hope this comparison made sense as it was the most simplistic way I could explain. In conclusion, breathing style was not about your lung capacity, it never was, it was all about forms and the pattern with which you breathe. When I learned this, I almost leapt up and started dancing in joy because if there was anything I was good at, it was learning and observing the pattern of things. After all, breathing styles were also a movement, all under the language of the body. Dot dot. Dot dot. Slash 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 slash. Stop it, that's enough. I said to Rengoku, who had a giant boulder on his back while he did push-ups. You are only breaking your body. Rengoku was a training freak. His training was so intense that it almost scared me when I first saw it. It was scary for me because I could see in detail how his body was working and tearing apart with each set of training he endured. I had never seen anyone training so hard and barbaric before. It reminded me of Might Guy from Naruto. In fact, I believe they were the same person in different universes. Instead of shouting, "Youth!" Rengoku yelled, "Set your heart aballs," while breaking his body and forging it like a sword. That is the whole point, Seiji. How about you come join me instead? Let me show you everything is possible if you put your mind to it. He said. No, I was not going to endure such hellish training for literally no gain. I could see how my muscles work and I trained just enough to simulate them and then allow them time to grow so that I could make the most progress at a period of time. What Rengoku did was actually counterproductive. He was overtraining himself, and in terms of increasing muscle power and building the body, he was cutting his own gains. I tried to tell him this multiple times, but he did not listen. In the end, we just came to a mutual agreement that we had different type of training styles. I utilized my gifts to get the most progress out of training, but he was using his determination to not only sharpen his body but his mind as well. Each of our styles had its pros and cons. Looking objectively, my training style was superior and I made maximum progress. But on the other hand, Rengoku was not only training his body but also the endurance of his mind. It was because of his freakishly intense training that he was able to go beyond his limits and achieve the impossible when it was needed. Like it was the case when he was fighting Akaza. In the end, it was just a matter of choice. Which one would you prefer? Hey, this reminded me of the scientific training versus ego lifting in the gym. Which one was a better method? By the way, this did not mean I was not training hard by any means. I was training as hard as my body could handle, but Rengoku was just another level. He was a freak. And I believed he would get stronger his own way. Who am I to try and stop him when I clearly knew that he would grow stronger? 100. Rengoku yelled, and then he stood up with raised hands. I cringed when I saw the muscle tear on his tricep and chest muscles. That would take at least 2 weeks to heal properly, but he would probably train again the day after tomorrow. I guess we are persisting through sheer shonen power with this one. Seiji, let us go for a run around the mountain, he said, and I released a sigh. I shook my head and relented. I guess I could go for a run. A few minutes later I had to struggle to catch up with him. He said let's run around the mountain, but what he meant was, let us sprint as fast as we could around the mountain. Fucking freakish bastard. ... We trained like that for a week. We would spar against each other whenever we had time, with the victor always being me. But the thing about winning against Rengoku was that he never even went close to going all out. His body just couldn't go full power on someone he held close. I learned flame breathing with Rengoku as well, and he was even kind enough to let me read the manuals of the previous flame Hashiras. I managed to learn all of the forms in a week. I made huge progress, especially when Rengoku was always willing to demonstrate them for me and my eyes saw everything, so it made it easier to learn them. Although I was far from mastering them, I think it boosted my overall combat power many times. We would hunt demons during the night as well, and it became a lovely bonding time between us. It was times we spent under the moon that I would remember forever. Then a week passed and it was finally upon us. The final selection. ... Dash 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 dash. Double update. 23 comments, 0 vote. The final selection. Seiji's POV. Beautiful. The world was beautiful. But demons corrupted this world. Their ugly existence and evil hearts were a stain on this beautiful world. Such beauty did not deserve filth. So I shall drive them to extinction. I would rid the world of its blemish. And I would start from this mountain. Such was my thought process as I climbed up the trail and steps of Mount Fuji. The mountain was covered with beautiful wisteria trees from the base till halfway up the mountain. The flowers released a beautiful glow of pink, purple and lavender, and it felt like I was in a different realm entirely. There were wisteria trees at the base, but halfway was where they were most plentiful. The place was so bright. It was brighter than day. The wisteria flowers released a sweet scent that made the simple act of breathing an enjoyable experience. They were soft when you touched them, and their beauty made you hesitant to even blink. It was a feast to all the senses. I wished I had working ears because I was sure they would make such soothing sounds when the winds blew on them. Ha 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 ha, Seiji, you look drunk. Rengoku tapped my shoulder and said. Yes, my friend, I was drunk. Drunk from beauty. My eyes felt like they were having an orgasm just looking at the beautiful scenery. No joke, it was squirting tears. The steps were covered with a thin layer of algae, yet it was extremely clean and maintained. Red pillars with kanji words written on them stood at the edge of the steps and gave a unique Japanese vibe. In conclusion, I was going to attend the final selection every year. At last, we reached halfway up the mountain and there was a small clearing there with a platform. Rengoku and I were the first ones to reach the place, so we decided to stand under the biggest wisteria tree that also provided a perfect view of the whole compound. We waited as the other participants slowly made their way up the mountain. Rengoku and I judged everyone who came up the mountain. We gave our thoughts on which one of them was strong and which one had the potential to pass the final selection. I had my eyes to judge them, and Rengoku claimed that his gut feeling was never wrong. That one looks strong. Look at him, he is covered with scars. Clearly, his heart is burning with determination. He will definitely pass. Yeah, and it's not just scars. He has 3 of his fingers missing. He wouldn't be able to hold a sword properly. He fails. Look at that giant of a man. He looks strong. That's just his genetic. His tendons are weak and his muscles show a lack of proper development. Also, he is too fat. What about that guy? His eyes give me the chills. He's blind in the right eye. Look at that guy carrying a long sword. It's too long, he has to put it on his back. He looks like he knows how to fight properly. That might be true. His muscles are certainly developed in the perfect way, that tells me at least he knows how to swing. He might pass. Oh, I know that mask. He is a disciple of Yorokodaki, the retired water Hashira. They all have that distinctive mask. He's dead. What? Why? Don't ask. Oh, that girl has inverted nipples. That's rare. Seiji, oops, did I say that out loud? In a few hours, the small compound was filled with young warriors who wished to become demon slayers. They all had that look in their eyes, like a student who were about to face the final exams. Most of them were looking at each other like they were enemies, and that was not a good thing. We were not going to compete with each other for the final selection. Instead, it would be about survival, and you might need to work together. It would not do you good to glare at everyone. After all participants had gathered, a lady with white hair guarded by 2 demon slayers walked towards the platform and stood on it. Good evening, everyone. The lady with white hair started, and everyone turned towards her. My name is Lady Amane Ubuyashiki. Welcome participants, to the Demon Slayer Core Final Selection, she said. Holy shit, it really is her. The badass wife who did not tremble in front of the Demon King, aka the perfect wife. God, she was beautiful. Her beauty stood out even in the garden of beautiful wisteria flowers. Let us not waste time and get straight to the point. Here in Mount Fuji, there are several demons that were captured alive by demon slayers. They are kept there for this event, and the wisteria flowers prevent them from leaving the mountain. She said. They bloom on this mountain each year round, and they cover everything from the base to halfway to the top. But the wisteria ends here, she said, and signaled behind her, which no longer had wisteria. There are demons beyond this point, and they are very hungry. For the final selection, you must survive for 7 days beyond the wisteria's protection. Good luck, everyone. Your trial begins here. After she said what was needed, she left the platform immediately and left us to go beyond the safe point. Hey Rengoku, what did her voice sound like? I asked. Huh, she sounded normal to me. Although some might say her voice was quite stoic, he said with a shrug. Then we were all separated into a few groups. These groups would go up the mountain from different locations. Rengoku and I had to separate. Good luck Seiji, see you in 7 days. Rengoku said with a smile that outshined the glowing flowers for a good second. Of course. Be sure you don't hurt yourself trying to save a stranger, everyone who came here is prepared to die. I said because I knew he was strong enough to easily pass this test. The only way he could get hurt was if he tried to act like a hero and save everyone as Sabito did. We can do anything we want, even the impossible, as long as we believe in it, he said, and then his smile turned wider. So I can save everyone without getting hurt. I'll just have to kill every demon then, I said with a smile, and we separated. I was amongst a group of 10 people and we went up the mountain from the west side. The atmosphere immediately turned gloomy and a sense of danger prickled my skin when I left the protection of the wisteria trees. This should be fun, I said, and my eyes glowed in the new darkness void of wisteria light. I could see the demons ahead and they were sharpening their teeth. Let the final selection begin. Image. Dash 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 dash. Author. Add this your library and give me stones please. Do that and you get more updates. Join my Patreon to read 2 weeks ahead on both my ongoing books and participate in polls. Patreon. Emmanuel_Capricorn.